This is a compilation of the massive amount of fires that have happened in China just in the last 6 weeks or so, maybe. I'll maybe add some commentary here and there, but for the most part, I'm just going to let it play through because they do a pretty good job at just covering it. This first part, I'll tell you, notice how far apart these boats are and that the wind, there's pretty much zero wind. The smoke is going straight up. So the idea that one boat would catch another one on fire and catch another one on fire, which would catch another one on fire, is bogus. It's not a flying ember. When Maui lit up and boats that were clear out in the water started catching fire, they were telling us, oh, well, that's just because there's an ember that flew out there and landed on the boat. Bullshit. Everyone watching this channel knows my perspective on this. It is a form of electricity, whether it travels through underground, through the water, or through the air. All of these fires are drawing towards the electrically conductive material on the boats and the buildings. So from there, I'll just pretty much let it play and let you watch.
On the night of November 27th, a fishing boat caught fire at the Chaogang Border Trade Pier in Beihai, Guangxi Province. The fire spread to 8 nearby boats, consuming them in flames. The scene was intense. Videos posted by netizens show fierce flames and thick black smoke filling the sky, casting a red glow over the night. Some people were seen fighting the fire on site. Several people shared their concerns on social media. I saw the fire at Beihai Chaogang Pier before going to bed. I was really worried. It felt awful. It turns out several fishing boats were on fire. The damage is huge. I opened my social media, and all I saw were videos of the pier fire. Tomorrow is always uncertain. We never know what will happen first. We always think we have time, but life is unpredictable. How many people can't sleep tonight? Witnesses said the fire started around 9:40 p.m. on the 27th. There was no one on board at the time, and after the fire was put out, the boats were reduced to their skeletons. One witness recalled that the diesel and other flammable materials on the boats made the fire even worse, with thick smoke visible several kilometers away. Fishermen at the pier had to evacuate, and the scene became chaotic. The witness also mentioned that the firefighting boat was broken, preventing it from reaching the burning boats. By the time rescue teams from the Fishery Administration arrived, it was too late. They said, "We watched the boats burn. The damage must have been in the millions." A local resident said he heard explosions during the fire, unsure if it was from the gas tanks or something else. The fire lasted at least 3 to 4 hours, still burning until midnight. Meanwhile, other fishermen scrambled to salvage their fish, fearing the site would be sealed off and any fish would be left to spoil. The government of Yinhai District, Beihai, reported on November 28 that the fire was extinguished by 1:20 a.m., with no casualties reported. The cause of the fire is under investigation, and losses are being assessed. However, some netizens questioned whether the authorities were hiding casualties, as many videos of the fire were taken down. For natural and man-made disasters, the authorities often handle them quietly, avoiding reports or covering up details when they can. In fact, over the years, it has become known that the Chinese government sometimes downplays or manipulates the death toll in major accidents. Around 5 p.m. on November 26, in Bozhou, Anhui, a huge explosion was heard, causing windows and glass in many residents' homes to shatter. Roll-up doors were deformed, and ceiling panels fell. The wall of a local primary school collapsed, and the buildings inside the school suffered significant damage. Vehicles parked along the road were also affected. Videos from the scene show a mushroom cloud rising after a series of explosions. Other footage reveals exposed steel rebar, collapsed walls, and large areas of broken bricks and rubble scattered on the ground. Surveillance footage from about 2 kilometers away clearly recorded the massive sound, with windows shattered and the tremors felt distinctly. A local resident said the explosion was caused by a government mishandling during the destruction of fireworks and firecrackers. The related video circulated online for almost a day before Chinese media reported the incident around noon the following day. On November 27th, the District Emergency Management Bureau issued a statement saying that on November 23rd, during a major safety inspection in Zhaoqiao Township, an illegal fireworks manufacturing site was discovered. On November 26th, the Bureau entrusted a third-party company to safely destroy the fireworks materials, which resulted in loud sounds, smoke, and shock waves that damaged some nearby windows and other items. 4 people sustained minor scrapes. Some netizens questioned, such a powerful explosion and no casualties on site? While the official report stated that the shockwaves only caused minor damage to nearby houses, footage shared by local residents showed much more extensive damage than just minor destruction. Some local netizens reported that the area was sealed off. Others said that police instructed people to delete videos and not share them. On the morning of November 27th, a blogger went to the site, but found it was already sealed off. In the footage taken by the blogger, an excavator was seen flattening the ruins.
Since
the police have blocked the area and won't let us in, I can only film from outside. The excavator is clearing everything. It's completely destroyed. The houses are all collapsed.
One netizen commented, "Forget about the explosion. A friend uploaded a fire video to a short video platform and was contacted by the police. Whether or not you believe it, you have to think about whether it's acceptable." In addition to the recent explosions, there have been numerous fires across China, many of which haven't been reported by the media. Videos shared by netizens have been quickly removed. On the morning of November 28th, a large fire broke out near Shima village in Dongguan, Guangdong. The thick black smoke billowed to the sky. On the night of November 27th, a fire broke out in Shihu 2nd Road in Chongling, Anhui. On November 27th, a massive fire broke out in Xintianli Technology Company, located in Taizhou, Zhejiang. The black smoke was visible from several kilometers away, and the smell in the air was overpowering. The fire spread quickly, and the flames were clearly visible. The fire began in the afternoon, when thick black smoke suddenly appeared, followed by flames consuming the roof. Several videos show the fire rapidly growing within minutes, with the flames spilling out between the gaps in the factory structure and the metal plates warping from the heat. Nearby workers and residents evacuated in a hurry, and a crowd of panicked workers gathered outside the factory calling for help. By the time multiple fire trucks arrived, the factory's outer walls were scorched from the heat, and the flames continued to pour from inside. The fire was difficult to extinguish due to the large quantities of plastic and packaging materials stored at the site. Explosions could be heard from the scene. Some local residents said that when the fire started, the flames reached the roof, and the air was thick with the pungent smell of burning plastic. The nearby roads were blocked off, and several businesses closed early. Some even said that during the peak of the fire, the sky was completely covered with black smoke, making it seem like the entire factory was burning. However, authorities have not released any information on casualties or the cause of the fire. Several employees speculated that the fire started in the warehouse or production area. On the morning of November 27th, a tire factory in Liwu Industrial Zone, Huizhou, caught fire. The flames grew larger, and black smoke covered the sky. On the same day, a building near the road in Guangyu Village, Lianjiang, Fujian, caught fire. The flames...
If you've been keeping track, that's 5 that they've just rattled off that all were on November 27th. They get to some giant skyscrapers here in a minute. I don't know how many more they're going to show that were on November 27th all on the same day, but by the end, their summary is that there is an extraordinary amount of fires going on and that something's not right here.
November 26th, a fire broke out at the Jinghebei Apartments in Huai'an, Jiangsu, burning roads and buildings. The local fire rescue team reported that the fire was caused by an accident during construction on the east side of the apartments in the morning. The flames were extinguished by 9:11 a.m. with no reported injuries. On the evening of November 25th, a vehicle transporting new cars caught fire on the Jingkun Expressway. The footage shows that the electric vehicles were completely burned. On November 25th, a video posted by a netizen showed a large fire at Daluo Mountain in Zhejiang. The fire continued until the evening. At 9 a.m. on the 26th, a reporter contacted the Wenzhou Emergency Management Bureau. Staff confirmed that they received the alarm at 2:28 p.m., and the fire was extinguished by around 11:30 p.m. The preliminary estimate for the burned area was about 10 acres. Fortunately, no casualties were reported, and the cause of the fire is still under investigation. Daluo Mountain is an important ecological barrier located in the southeast of Wenzhou City. On the evening of November 24th, a fire broke out in the Jingsheng waste paper packaging factory in Baiyun District, Guangzhou. The flames reached high into the sky, and thick smoke poured out. Also on November 24th, a fire broke out in Daliu Village, Dezhou, Shandong. On the evening of November 23rd, a video circulating on social media showed a fire at the Huafeng Food City warehouse in Guiyang, Guizhou. The fire was intense, and merchants nearby confirmed to reporters that the fire started at the outer warehouse. After that fire, netizens shared footage of the aftermath, showing the area in disarray. On the morning of November 18th, a fire broke out at a building in Jiangsu. A witness reported seeing red flames erupting from the top of a low-rise building around 9 a.m., with intense flames and thick smoke rising into the sky. The source of the fire was believed to be an automobile maintenance center nearby, which then spread to adjacent buildings. However, the exact height of the building involved in the fire is unknown. The Chinese authorities did not release any official report on this incident. On November 16th, a furniture store in Huizhou, Guangdong caught fire. The flames were fierce, and thick black smoke filled the air. On the morning of November 9th, a fire broke out at the old factory building of Zhongkun Aluminum in Chongqing. The fire spread quickly due to old wiring and low fire resistance ratings of the buildings. It is believed that the fire was triggered during the demolition of old equipment, which ignited nearby flammable materials. The owner suffered significant losses. On October 28th, a fire occurred at an abandoned factory in Shenzhen, Guangdong. The fire covered an area of approximately 200 square meters. Preliminary investigations suggest that the fire started when workers were performing unauthorized hot work while dismantling old equipment. On the night of October 23rd, a factory in Huizhou, Guangdong caught fire. Flames were intense, affecting the entire 6th floor of the factory. Netizens reported that the fire occurred right after work hours, and there were concerns about potential injuries. In the early morning of November 29th, a fire broke out at a residential area in Zhuolu County, Hebei. Video footage shows 2 to 3 electric vehicles burning, with flames rising from the building entrance. A blogger reminded people not to park electric vehicles in hallways or near building entrances, and to avoid charging the batteries indoors, as it can lead to serious consequences in the event of a fire. On November 28th, a blogger shared a post stating that a fire broke out at the Tianhua Xintiandi residence in Heze, Shandong. When the fire started, residents quickly went to put it out with water from the fire hydrant, but found that there was no water in it. After calling the fire department, the fire truck arrived, but could not enter the community. It wasn't until several people worked together to kick open the gate that the fire truck could get inside. Once inside, the firefighters found that none of the hydrants in the entire complex had any water. The fire chief angrily scolded the property manager, asking how they could fight a fire without water. In the end, they had to use water from the fire truck hoses to put out the fire, but due to the delay, one building was completely burned down. Netizens expressed their shock, commenting, "What is happening these days? Explosion in Bozhou, fire in Hong Kong, train incident in Kunming, fire in Guangxi, and a huge fire in Jingzhou. In just a few days, I've seen fire disasters in no less than 10 places, and they're all big ones. What's going on recently? So many strange incidents happening back to back. These consecutive incidents are unsettling. Natural and man-made disasters are terrifying." The most terrifying recent incident was the Hong Kong Huangfukun fire on November 26th. By November 29th, the most terrifying recent incident was the Hong Kong Huangfukun fire on November 26th. By November 29th, 128 people had died, 79 were injured, and over 100 people were still missing. When the fire occurred, all the buildings were surrounded by scaffolding for repairs. Some Hong Kong netizens questioned, were the construction workers from mainland China? The cause of the fire has not yet been officially confirmed, but government sources in Hong Kong believe it started from a low-level scaffolding net that caught fire, which then spread to other parts of the building and ignited foam boards used for enclosing windows and doors. The Hong Kong government emphasized that the scaffolding net had fire-retardant properties, trying to downplay the connection between the scaffolding and the fire. Currently, the Hong Kong government is discussing replacing bamboo scaffolding with metal scaffolding. Mainland authorities have quickly reiterated their ban on bamboo scaffolding. However, some Hong Kong netizens have accused the government of making bamboo scaffolding a scapegoat. A blogger revealed that the primary cause of the fire wasn't the bamboo scaffolding, which had been used in Hong Kong for over a century without issue. The contractor for the scaffolding was Hong Kong Hongye Construction, and the fire-retardant protection net used in the scaffolding was made by a nylon net manufacturer in Shandong, China. The fire-retardant certification was issued by the Shandong Bingzhou Laboratory, which replaced Hong Kong's traditional HOCLA standards. The switch was made to lower costs, but it severely compromised the fire safety performance. Despite the widespread online criticism, the Hong Kong government has not responded to these concerns. Former Beijing lawyer and chairman of the Canadian Alliance, Lai Jianping, commented on the Hong Kong fire, saying, "I feel it's 3 parts natural disaster, 7 parts man-made disaster. The most important issue is the building materials and construction management. Since Hong Kong was fully taken over by the CCP, it has become just another city under the Chinese Communist Party's control. Not only has its legal system been assimilated by mainland China, but its mindset and practices have also become aligned with mainland China's deceitful, unscrupulous methods of cutting corners, corruption, and exploitation." Chinese-Canadian writer Sheng Yue also pointed out that after the implementation of the national security law in Hong Kong, Beijing not only controls the political domain, but also reshapes Hong Kong's administrative and regulatory laws in many ways.
So here they get into the political finger-pointing between mainland China and Hong Kong, liability issue, who's responsible, blaming the person with the scaffolding or the fire-retardant net. But I believe this is all due to the same dirty electricity that Mr. MB3 shows. He doesn't show it much anymore because everyone wasn't interested. After he'd been showing it for about a year, starting in November of 2024, People started sending him these videos of flashing lights everywhere that we now call dirty electricity. It's an electromagnetic frequency in the airwaves. It even pops up in solar lamps that are not connected to the electrical grid. Like this electricity is flowing right through the air, not just through the electrical power grids. Does it have something to do with the weakening magnetic field that allows these highly charged particles like protons and electrons and solar plasma to penetrate our atmosphere? I believe so. That's why I call it plasma fire. Now, to really blow your cap right off your shoulders, there's a video that I'll include the link in the description to that I titled The Ultimate Do Exhibition of Plasma Fire with Alien Tech in quotes. And it's from Tianjin, China, where a car manufacturer had an explosion happen and all of the cars that you see are burnt to a crisp and rusted, and they all have the same pattern: the missing engine block, the missing hoods, the missing doors, the missing top of the car. I can't zoom in right here for some reason. But this is one of the few examples where it does appear this electricity can be directed and weaponized. However, 99% of the evidence I've collected over the 8 years that I've been studying this phenomenon of electricity-driven fire, 99% of the evidence indicates undirected, unintentional, not weaponized. Like fence posts with a couple of charcoal spots on them. Trees, etc., the sunflowers. There's 99% of the evidence that I've collected that is just like a fence post with a couple of charcoal spots on it, and then another fence post down the road a little with a couple charcoal spots on it that cannot be interpreted as directed energy weapons. However, there are a few where it does appear there is some evidence that would indicate directed energy weapons. But the people that like to run around, running their mouth about directed energy weapons, smart cities and smart meters, insist on ignoring the other 99% of the evidence that's available to them that they have access to through my channel, because that would require them to go back to the drawing board and create a theory that incorporates that other 99% of the evidence that appears not directed, intentional, or weaponized, and they don't want to do that. They just want to run their mouth. Anyway, let me show you a little bit of this video, and I'll just include the link in the description of this Tianjin blast, burnt cars in 4K, where it does appear to be directed, and this happened just a few days after China devalued their currency, which negatively impacted the United States economy in a way that really pissed off the Obama administration. And a few days later, this happened, which looks more like a small nuclear blast that went off. But none of the cars are moved. They're all sitting in the same exact place that they were. Like they weren't actually hit with a blast. Almost like it was an implosion that happened at the center, drawing this massive electrical charge through all of these cars, burning them in these ways that prove it was all electricity-driven fire.
I'm videoing it. What the
I think that might be a gas station or something.
I guess. Whoa! Oh! What the? No! No, baby! No!
Are we dangerous here?
Yeah, we're dangerous. Oh my God!
Oh dear! Are you filming?
Yes, I'm filming.
Whoa! Whoa! I think we are dangerous.
Let's go! Let's go down! Let's go! Whoa! I'm videoing it. What the?
I think that that might be a gas station or something.
I guess. Whoa! Oh, what the? No! No, baby! No!
Please! Are we dangerous here?
Yeah, we're dangerous. Oh my God! Oh dear!
Are you filming?
Yes, I'm filming.
Whoa! Whoa! I think we are dangerous.
Let's go. Let's go down. Let's go.
I'm about to go over some of the still frame images from the explosion at the car factory in Tianjin, China, and show you many of the burn patterns that I've recognized that I refer to as plasma fire. This happened in 2015. I didn't start investigating plasma fire till 2018. Here you're looking at melted rims. Many of these same effects that you're about to see have happened on a smaller scale all throughout the world in these plasma fires that I've documented, including melted engine blocks, melted rims of cars, and melted glass. These are all of the cars that were all burned, but as you can see, they were not moved by a shock wave of the pressure of an explosion. Notice right here the fine line between total destruction and untouched cars. Total destruction right here. Fairly untouched cars right here, but you'll see there is some anomalies. They're all missing their back window, yet they still have the plastic cover on them. Over here, again, total destruction here. Relatively untouched cars here. An explosion, as we understand them, does not work this way. This is more like an electromagnetic pulse that affected all of these cars. That's probably just what I'll use as my thumbnail for this video. But as you can see, the uniformity of the destruction, the extreme amount of rust that happens as a result of electrolysis that Judy Woods titled the Cheeto effect. Because after 9/11, you saw those big beams of iron sticking up out of the rubble looking bright orange, like a big Cheeto. Notice how they're all missing the roof, the uniformity of the damage. They're all missing the roof. These are not convertibles. Notice they're all missing the hood. And again, the uniformity of the damage. Each and every one of them is missing the hood. Each and every one of them has that hole cut in the top, where apparently maybe it was made out of a different piece of a different type of metal that resonated with the electromagnetics. That's part of the explosion. I'll show you a video that actually depicts that. This one's relatively benign, but I was showing that the tire has steel belted radials. Those steel belts work like a tuning fork and resonate with the energy. This is more minor compared, more like what you'd see in California fires or the others around the world. Here we have the melted rim on the back. Notice the roof of each one of these cars and the uniformity of the damage. A bomb does not do that. An explosion does not do that. I posit the idea that it was an electromagnetic pulse and an implosion, like most of the energy went inwards. Maybe like when you drop a drop of water into a calm pond. There's an initial outward push and then a second push where a drop of water jumps up out of the water. Like a thermobaric mini nuke that they shoot into these underground tunnel systems to get the terrorists out of there, that works like a plunger. It pushes one way and then has a giant suction coming back the other direction, which fills the tunnel with dust. Because like a plunger, it creates a suction going through the whole tunnel system, so even though it didn't reach miles down in there, with the explosion and the physical force or the thermal heat, it created that plunger effect where it pushes and then pulls. So for miles and miles, those underground tunnels are now filled with dust and no one can breathe and they suffocate. Possibly something similar to that happened here. There were 3 different explosions, and that's the same thing that we saw in Beirut. There was an explosion that looked like some sort of technology we've never seen.
There you can see the enormity of what appears to be a secondary explosion. Whether that was
a secondary explosion,
it could well be the first explosion, because it may.
That's exactly what we saw in Tianjin, was a first, a second, and a third explosion getting consecutively larger and larger. So my point is, in some cases, it does look like this kind of energy can be directed, and those cars all appear to have been burned with a type of electricity-based fire. But I have hundreds of examples showing this same electricity-based fire that's not directed. In fact, I'll include the link in the description called Proof It's Not Due. But this, in the ground right there, is an example that I just took a few months back. Look at the unburned wood on the right side of this tree stump. Unburned right there. Yet the rest of the tree vaporized so much that the roots are completely vaporized and gone. How can a piece of the outside of the tree remain completely unburned while the roots have been vaporized? And I have endless, thousands of examples of this electricity-driven fire, in examples where there's no possible way it can be perceived as directed. Some people will say, well, maybe it's a land grab. They're trying to get to the minerals in the ground and they want to clear the land right there. When it's a little teeny tiny spot with just a few pieces of charcoal on a fence post here and there is no possible way of perceiving it as directed, weaponized, or intentional. So I do believe we have both. And all of those fires that are going on right now in China, it's hard to say. But I think it's like free radicals, like electricity, what Mr. MB3 calls dirty electricity, floating around, latching on to different things. Sometimes it makes the lights fluctuate. Sometimes it makes a building catch on fire. Other places it makes large areas catch on fire. Here's an example where it just burns the underside of this log. Everything else pretty much unburned. And the underside of this log is turned to charcoal. Fires don't just burn the underside of a log and turn it to charcoal and leave the top piece unburned. That's electricity. That's wireless. It doesn't need to touch. It doesn't need to have a ground. It floats through the air like microwave electricity. And in 99% of the evidence that I've collected over the course of 8 years, hundreds of videos in 10 different states, 99% of it is not directed, intentional, or weaponized. Like this tree here, with a big chunk of charcoal right in the middle. It's not burned at the bottom, not burned on the top. Just a big chunk of charcoal right there smack dab in the middle of the tree. That's not fire. Fire doesn't do that. It's unburned on all sides around that charcoal area, top, bottom, left, and right. And the next tree, as we walk on down the road, shows similar burn patterns that once you know what you're looking at, fire doesn't leave this area unburned and that area turned to charcoal right next to each other. Most people look at this and all they see is forest fire. They don't see the electricity-based nature of these fires. Fire doesn't leave a big unburned spot right on top of an otherwise charcoal log. That's electricity. And then once you see the same pattern over and over and over, oh, there's another unburned spot on an otherwise charcoaled log. Here's another log that's just charcoaled on the bottom facing side. and then you see that pattern repeat over and over and over and thousands of times, you finally come to acknowledge that what you're dealing with isn't fire as we understand it. It's electricity. It's microwave. And these logs that I'm showing you are burnt, surrounded by otherwise unburned weeds and leaves and twigs. It attracts to the larger objects, the denser logs.
Yet the pine needles didn't go up. You know how flammable those are. And you have literal charcoal surrounded by the highly flammable materials. Here's another pattern. Burnt on the bottom side. It was like that, right? So it's burnt on the bottom side and on the ends. Burnt on the underside. Burnt on the underside. Should we keep going? There's got to be one that breaks the rule. This one did actually catch some of the pine needles on fire. But that's rare. The example we just showed you a second ago was surrounded all the way around, just like this, where you literally had pine needles touching the burned part, like right there. Burned on the underside. Pretty trippy stuff, but even trippier than this is the fact that people don't see it. And even trippier than that is the fact that people who were shown choose to continue acting as if it's not happening, carrying on with their life.
Oh, piece of charcoal surrounded by otherwise unburned wood. Fire doesn't do that. There is literally hundreds of thousands of examples of these patterns. I'll leave the link in the description to this Yellow Lake plasma fire that happened just a little ways away from me last summer. And I show you all these things. Charcoal, right next to this.
So if there was any flame coming out of this, it would have caught that on fire. And that exists all around here. Every piece of wood you see on the ground has charcoal. And it's all embedded within this highly flammable leaves and weeds. So there's 1,000 examples you can spot from around here. Leaves and weeds. Charcoal. Plasma in mysterious ways.
Are you seeing that? Unburned, dried out leaves and weeds that are literally touching the charcoal of larger logs. In regular fire, it takes much more energy to light a log. If there was flame coming from that log, there's unburned weeds right above it, literally touching it. This means those logs essentially burned flamelessly, or in a mysterious way where it doesn't catch the weeds and the highly flammable, dried out leaves that are touching it on fire. That's physically impossible. That defies all the laws of fire physics and thermodynamics. And other people just see a forest fire here. And I show you over and over again. There's another log embedded with a charcoal log embedded within highly flammable leaves. Should just turn it up. And you can see it's left an impression in the ground right there, so it's been there for a while. It didn't just roll over there. It was there for a long time. Embedded within all these leaves. I'll try not to sound like a broken record, but it can't be overstated. Yeah, when I can show you this same pattern over and over hundreds of times, it's appropriate to keep repeating it until it sinks in, because people can't wrap their mind around this. It's so alien to anything we've ever seen, so we see a pattern and label it and identify it as something we do recognize. Oh, that's fire. That's forest fire. No, this is nothing like forest fire. This is completely alien to everything you've ever seen. You've never seen anything like this. But this is what Greg Braden taught me many years ago, that when we see a pattern that we don't recognize, we identify the closest thing to that pattern that we do recognize and apply that label. And since we don't recognize plasma fire, electricity-driven fire, we see a pattern that looks the closest thing to that we do recognize is forest fire. And that's not what this is. The electricity-based burn patterns are everywhere once you can see them. I'll stop now. Links are in the description to the Tianjin example, where it's also electricity-driven fire that burned all those hoods off all of those cars and melted all that glass. Because you see, fire doesn't discriminate between the hood of a car and the quarter panel. If it's hot enough to burn off the hood, it's hot enough to burn off the quarter panel. And on each one of those cars, it makes a fine line between the hood and the quarter panel, leaves the quarter panel there, burns the hood, vaporizes it to where it's completely gone. On every single car. That's alien. That's foreign. That's unlike anything we've ever seen. So would you say, oh, that was fire that did that to those cars? No, fire doesn't do that either. In one of those examples, there's a possibility it's directed and intentional and weaponized. In the other 99% of all the examples I've cataloged, some of them, there is 0% chance that it's directed and weaponized. So I'll also include the link in the description of this one that I uploaded 7 months ago titled Proof It's Not Directed Energy Weapons. Compilation of electric wildfire, where I show you mostly small examples from around my neighborhood. Look, this fence post got some charcoal spots on it. Hey, look, this mailbox that this person has, it also has charcoal spots on it. There's no chance either of those are being attacked with a directed energy weapon intentionally, proving that this electricity releases randomly, sporadically, chaotically, in an undirected, uncontrolled fashion. Like the canals around my neighborhood. You see me pointing there to the irrigation canals in the neighborhood. And you see that other one over there on the left that says Interplanetary Plasma Fires Part 2? You see those things in the sky? Plasma fire is going to seem like a small side note and an asterisk over in the margins, in the big picture and the big story of what's coming soon. So it really doesn't matter anymore, and I'm done talking to a brick wall. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't force them to drink from the tree of knowledge. I've been doing this for 8 years. You've all proven to me you don't give a shit.
You can hear the weeds that I'm crunching as I go through. Adds a good effect. Yeah. So once you've got a few hundred examples showing the exact opposite of what you've experienced in your normal campfire, where it takes a lot of kindling to get a big giant log burning, and this stuff right here burns like real easy, and it's directly above and even touching, just like those pine needles inside that tree trunk. It's touching. You have to move it out of the way to see the rest of the charcoal. If I put a lighter to that right now, this whole thing would go up real fast. Yet these logs are turned to charcoal. This fire works like in the opposite way of fire as we've known it. Yet I'm still the only one who sees it. Here's another one of those channels that are burned in the log.